Greetings, friends and fellow rebels. I want to continue sharing a few stories about channeling, which accentuates the need for precaution, but also the process, enlightens you on the process of what it is, how it works, and how best to approach it. And I want today to share a personal story, something that I experienced while sitting in a channeling circle. And this involves a wonderful young man with a personal agenda. Everyone in that circle had been vetted. Everyone in that circle was known to everyone else in that circle. The circle was being held in a a healing center. It was an alternative healing, spiritual healing. Its primary focus was healing and to teach. And again, this was mid 80s. So the new age was still a fairly newly mainstream, and there's a lot of excitement about it. A lot of people stepping forward with the idea of doing shamanic work, and the area that we held our circle was very protected. The whole the whole institute, the whole building was very protected because of the work that was done there. So if we were going to encounter problems, they were problems that we were bringing in with us. Now, one of the things that all mystery schools teach, and one of the most important things for seekers to know and to do if they want to develop their spiritual gifts, is to know thyself, to learn as much as you can about yourself. Because it's a whole lot easier to control what is conscious than that which is inside of you that you have chosen not to recognize, or perhaps cannot for one reason or another recognize. So initially, when you're learning, the first stage of that, and some people never get past the first stage of that, is to know yourself, who you are, inside and out. It's critical to do that. So I was sitting circle with our group, and we had several very nice presentations, people who called and they received Mother Mary, or they received the uh, Archangel Michael, different people, or their own particular um, guide and guardian. And then we got to a young man who he opened himself up without restriction, without boundary, and called whoever wanted to come, whatever wanted to come talk through him, to come talk through him. These were the early days. I don't think that the prevailing wisdom now is to randomly call to whoever might be around. But at that time, there wasn't an understanding of the problems that could occur. At that time, the reality of spirit forms was still questionable. This was still, let's see if we can get some proof here that any of this is real. And more often than not, when we run into problems, it's because we have that attitude going into it. Prove yourself to me. So this person brought in an energy, the energy spoke through them, answered a few questions, did a blessing, and then refused to leave. We called out to the channeler and asked the channeler to return, politely asked the the guardian guide to release the person, and he didn't come back. He didn't return. He remained in trance. He remained in trance state. Several different people worked on calling the human's name, come back, it's time to end this session now. We need to see the human. It's time to to wrap up the circle, come back. Nothing. He continued to slump over. In fact, he slumped to the point where he was on the ground. Luckily for us, one of our participants, one of our members, brought his girlfriend in. And his girlfriend was a witch, which is to say, she worked with the natural forces of the world. She wasn't a Satanist. She wasn't a bad person, but she was somebody who worked with the natural forces. You know, the lower magics, the lower forces, the primal, the lower forces. So she wasn't allowed in the circle because, you know, we're working in the higher energies and the celestial energies and the high energies, and we don't want a witch who works with the lower energies in this circle. She has to wait in the corner. So she was off in the corner. And when she saw all the problems that we were having with reviving and getting our human back, she watched for a good 5-10 minutes, and then she grew impatient because, you know, she wanted to get home eventually too. So she marched in the middle circle and kind of gently pushed back the people who were, you know, praying over him and throwing white light all around him and into him and through him and trying to get the human to come back. And she got in his face, his eyes were closed, got in his face, really close to him, and shook him really hard and said, "You come back here right now." And within 1 or 2 seconds, we got our human back. And I remember thinking to myself, well, whatever it is that she knows, whatever it is that she can do, I want to do that. Easier said than done. Most ethical witches, they don't recruit and they don't go around showing people, just anybody, how to work with the ley lines and how to work with the Devic forces and how to talk to the Fae, how to talk to the dragons, and how to move the energies that we all have a tie to through our humanity, how to move those weirding energies around. So I didn't get a chance to learn that discipline, but I was sure impressed at what she could do. And later on, a year or two later, when one of my friends talked to this gentleman young man, who had created such a scene, he sheepishly admitted, "Oh, well, I was just enjoying all the attention, and I told my guide, you know, I just rather float on the astral because I sure loved all that energy that everybody was sending to me." So, one of the things you need to be very cautious about when you're working any sort of energy work, whether it's channeling, whether it's healing, whether it's scrying, whether anything like that, you have to be careful about your intention walking into it. What is your intention? Do you want to impress people? Do you want to be safe? Do you want to be powerful? Do you want to learn the truth? Do you want to touch source? Your intention will form your experiences. And often, people may not be entirely aware of their conscious intention. That's something that they may discover over time and experience. But it will form what happens to them when they try to move energies around in order to effect change. Whether you call that spiritual gifts or magic, same difference. Something to think about. Thank you for joining me, and welcome to the forest.